More than a year and a half since the Nebraska Board of Regents hired University of Nebraska's Omaha's 16th Chancellor, Dr. Joanne Li.
And in that time, she set her sights on embracing a culture of what she calls social mobility. 6 News' Brent Weber sat down with the Chancellor to learn more in this exclusive interview.
Dr. Joanne Li, Jo, as she likes to be called, stepped into her first chancellorship in the middle of a pandemic last June. We sat down at her office earlier this week and covered a variety of topics, starting with UNO's approach to the changing higher ed landscape.
You have a wonderful curriculum, right, that you provide timely and important information and skill set for a student. Second thing is we go back to the internship, some kind of experiential learning opportunity. But the third piece is, want to put forefront to our partners in the community is the cultural experience. We want to develop a professional so that this candidate feel like, okay, I can see that I can start my career here. I can actually start my family here. I have this sense of affinity.
Urban Campus Omaha is a distant second to traditional Lincoln in student population. Then there's the unrivaled popularity of the Huskers. But Lee's more focused on lower tuition, smaller debt loads for grads, and higher acceptance rates for those who want to be Mavericks. The first Asian American to hold an executive leadership post in the University of Nebraska system, Lee says increased diversity on UNO's campus reflects demands of the world workforce.
Education should be by inclusion, not exclusion. We believe that, to be able to serve in urban city and many beyond, could be rural Nebraska, to provide that quality but affordable education, it's really our mission. So I actually think of this as something that is not Lincoln versus Omaha or Kearney, versus Omaha.
And maybe a chancellor that will go to a halftime and shake hands and see people and have fun and high five and let your proverbial hair down, enhances the experience for everybody.
100%. I love higher ed because I'm actually a beneficiary of higher ed of this country, right? As a person that actually grew up in Hong Kong, this country educated me. It provided me a lot of opportunity. And the only dream that I have is to actually have an opportunity to pay it forward.
The Chancellor cites the success of UNO's first Future of Work Symposium in November, providing students with what she calls direct conversations with industry leaders. This year's event is scheduled for April. On your side in Omaha, Brent Weber, 6 News.
And you can find more from the interview on our website, WOWT.com.